Allen's grave you see behind me is an ancient longbow and it's one of the highest points in Wiltshire. It literally dominates the heartland for the crop circles. And just 2 fields over from it, we have the first event in 2005, below Knapp Hill. This range of hills is a key area in the world of the crop circle phenomenon. We were awarded on the 1st of May with this elegant, if not simplistic design in the beautiful oilseed rape below the ancient hill fort. Oilseed rape is the only true canvas for the mystery to appear within at this time of year. This event is the curtain opener to the 2005 crop circle season in Wiltshire. And what a wonderful event it actually is. We have Knapp Hill behind us here, one of the ancient settlements you'll see today in Britain. But what's quite interesting about this formation is the fact that it actually formed on the ghost outline of the 2004 crop circle, which was the dolphin shape. So obviously the circle makers are using this as a prime spot so early on in the season. From the air, the clear ghost image of the 2004 event can be seen with the latest design positioned on the outer edge. It was a welcome addition to the Wiltshire countryside. Almost a month later, at the very end of May, this curious shape appeared, taking us all by surprise. Its overall design was a departure from what we expected to see. From the air, the segmental sections within the design show how carefully the formation was constructed. Some 13 days later, an all-seeing eye appeared directly next to the formation. Milk Hill is an area which has been very used to having crop circles appearing below its slopes, but this did seem to us a very odd pairing. Unfortunately, we were unable to gain access to this formation at Benthampton, and this, what you can see behind me, is the closest we can actually get to it on the ground. But what does this formation actually represent? Traditionally, the symbol represents 2 intertwining serpents wrapped around a coil on the actual staff itself. Now, the staff represented a divining rod, a measurement for the ancient builders. The staff was also a magical symbol of transformation. It represented the idea of exerting force by striking with the rod, the world, and changing it. Transformation. Well, before we enter the formation, I couldn't wait to show you this. This is called Devil's Den, and it's one of the many dolmens you will see today in Britain. Now, the reason for its name is supposedly that the devil himself actually moved the standing stones which originally surrounded this ancient structure. But it's a continuing association between ancient sites and crop circles, as I'm off to the new one on top of the hill. This elevated position away from the hustle and bustle of Wiltshire life creates this wonderful atmosphere for this latest creation. And what makes it even more special is the fact that it's very close to the Devil's Den, which is a very ancient dolmen. But there are many features inside this formation, and I want to show you this because this is very, very special. This is quite an unusual feature in this formation, and in 2004 we talked about perhaps we might see this again. And this is certainly one of the largest raised twisted centres I've actually seen. In fact, there were several fascinating details throughout the formation. In 2003, we saw the enigmatic formation called the Swallows at Walker's Hill, and we all discussed how we could possibly redefine the shapes we see in the first decade of the new millennium. Well, this is the beak part of the second formation, which is the Swallows at Devil's Den, and on the outer edge of the inner section is where its tail lies. There were several superstitions associated with swallows. According to the farmers, it is thought that if a swallow was killed by them, the milk yield would be poor. In English folklore, if a swallow flies into your home, it will bring considerable fortune. As we can see from this impressive formation, the birds are flying from the nest, creating the focal point of this enigmatic design. You know, I'm really enjoying discovering the different parts of this formation. This line here outlines the bottom half of its tail section, and it certainly seems to have remnants of its 2003 predecessor. But behind me here is the middle section, which has even greater features.
Two years ago, I predicted that this theme would continue, and we weren't disappointed, as this three-dimensional formation was so exhilarating in the evening sunshine. As we left this wonderful location, we couldn't help feeling that this design would set the precedent for the season to follow. We took one last look on the opposite bank above this mysterious ancient monument of Devil's Den.
Well, from our position here, this looks like an incredible formation. And what makes it even more memorable is the fact that we've never actually been here throughout the whole history of crop circles in Wiltshire.
This particular place is very special, as the crop circles have been appearing in this area for the last 17 years. However, we have never reported an event in this field before. It was certainly a refreshing change to visit an area well away from the normal haunts. The Lockley Hill formation was situated in such a remote location that it caused a little difficulty for us to locate its exact positioning on the ground. From the air, it seemed as if it would be relatively easy to locate. This is just one of the many odd features that occurs when circle chasing.
It's very hard to contemplate what's actually taking place on the ground in this formation. I mean, it covers a huge area, but you can see behind me it slightly raises up towards the hillside, which we can see gives you some indication of what this could possibly represent. What I can see as I'm walking through this formation is a series of circles and half moon shapes, which combined must have some sort of very important representation towards some geometrical perspective towards this actual design.
The overall shapes caused quite a stir with this regard to their geometrical parameters, as we discovered its many sections of standing and flattened parts. This resulted in a fascinating event on the ground. Its geometrical perspective turned out to include the mathematical problem of squaring the circle, or quadrature of the circle, as it's sometimes called. One of the fascinations of this problem is that it has been of interest throughout the whole of the history of mathematics. From the oldest mathematical documents known to the mathematics of today. The problem and related problems concerning pi have interested both professional and amateur mathematicians. The problem of squaring the circle in the form as we think of today originated in Greek mathematics and is not always properly understood. The problem was given a circle to construct geometrically a square equal in area to the given circle. However, in the beautiful sunshine, we all wondered what this ultimately meant from a deeper understanding, and if indeed this would evolve within more designs throughout the season. On the slopes of Boreham Down, in front of Westwoods, this resembled an ancient design, surrounded by unusual stories attached to its appearance.
On this glorious summer's night, we're walking around discovering this new formation. Now, in previous years, we've talked about how actual designs resemble some kind of ancient structure or foundations for huge temples. This particular design has a squarish centre to it, and four arms go splaying off into the design.
From the air, the echoes of this design to an ancient culture can be fully appreciated.
You know, it's always good to get down on the ground and look at the actual detail of the actual lay of the crop. But this is one of the many channels that make up this entire formation as it interlocks its way around the entire shape. We've talked about how this could have some ancient quality to it. Well, this seems to be the case as you walk around it.
Returning to these unusual stories attached to its appearance in the field, a day before its creation, two orange balls of light were seen gliding across the same field just before dusk on Tuesday the 21st of June, and then suddenly vanished. On Thursday the 23rd, a cyclist reported two dish-shaped objects floating just below the crop at the very top of the field. Their markings can clearly be seen from the last aerial shots. The season was demonstrating how contrasting the designs were becoming. This is one of the wonderful aspects of crop circling. their unpredictability is always surprising. This A.B. Truslow event, although not groundbreaking with regard to its design, was certainly pleasing in other ways, especially with its 24 set of triangles split into 12 sets of standing and flattened centres. The 24 triangles were arranged within a hexagon, encompassed by a larger flattened hexagon which framed the entire design. Our time within the formation was graced with this native Indian music as we explored many of its ground features.
As I'm walking around this formation, what becomes apparent is the fact this is a numbers game. And we talked about how there are 24 set of triangles, but at least 12 of those are these standing ones. And we said before about this aerial effect of the cube. Well, maybe you need these standing triangles to create that three-dimensional aspect.
Indeed, this three-dimensional principle was becoming more prominent with the designs in the first decade of the new millennium. These musicians certainly felt inspired to perform their music within the design as they felt a certain harmony with its geometry. We contemplated its clear message with regard to the numbers 12 and 24 as we carried on our journey of discovery.
This quaint small design with Silbury Hill as its backdrop creates a dramatic atmosphere to this location. Every year we see these huge complex designs, but intermingled with them are these types of actual events which go back to an earlier time of crop circling. Basically, they're more simplistic in form and take us back to, well, let's just say the source of where it began.
On closer inspection, this collection of crescents and circles reminded us of a theme that was quite prominent back in 1994. In that particular crop circle season, the crescent shapes were dominating the style, hinting perhaps at some astrological significance. This technique from the circle makers is still with us today, and has now moved into the realm of geometrical principles inherent within the formations. However, there were more surprises on the ground where these two circles collided.
But what I really want to show you is how these two floor patterns actually merge together. This main floor pattern here is the larger circle, and this line coming in here is basically the smaller circle which cuts into the main circle. But we can see here that this is a good indication of how this happened simultaneously.
It was incredibly refreshing to view this delightful crop circle so close to the imposing Silbury Hill in a location that has seen many crop circles designs in the past. In fact, the fields around Silbury have been the most notorious for crop circles throughout the whole area for the last 17 years.
This dramatic setting is certainly befitting a formation of this size and grandeur with Woodbury Hill behind me here. I'm walking down the main axis towards the central part of the design, and one of these squares here makes up one of the 4 squares which sits on the outer perimeter with this very, very nice tough centre. As I walk towards the centre, I'm going to have a look at some great features inside.
There was a huge amount of standing centres throughout the entire formation. The majority of them were within the main 4 squares from the inner part of the design. From the air, the 8-pointed star can clearly be identified, indicating perhaps how significant a number 8 was at this time.
What is apparent actually walking around this entire formation is the fact it's made up of squares, boxes and rectangles. But the ones I want to show you are a series of long rectangles which run around the entire formation. It's this one here which has this inner section of crop standing, and as I said, this makes up the inner portion of the design as well as these squares here.
On the ground, the design was very hard to comprehend without the aid of any aerial photographs. There were more surprises in store for us as we explored the outer proportions of the formation.
Walking around the entire perimeter of this formation, there seems to be a series of boxes made up in a double single arrangement.
These 5 random circles positioned either side of the road completely mystified us on our first arrival.
Well, obviously I've got to find this second half of this circle, and it obviously goes, well, possibly goes across the road, but I'm going to have a quick look now and see if I can find it. Oh yes, and there it is. But the interesting thing is about the fact that it seems to be at a lower level than this side of the circle, a much lower level. And what is even more interesting is the fact that none of the actual grass either side of this circle is affected. So basically what I've got to do now is actually film this circle with the road cutting through it. The only way that I can do that is to actually get into this side of the field. Now for me to do that, I've got to walk all the way around. So it's going to take a while.
If we look very closely, the hexagonal shape is not actually a flattened event.
What is fascinating about this whole group of circles is the fact they seem to be attracted to the Second World War pillbox. It's almost like the actual pillbox itself was incorporated into the design. As you see it from the air, it really enhances this whole grouping. Now, this seems to be the entrance to the field. So, as I come into the entrance, we have a clump of circles here already. And this one here is about a 35-foot across circle with a little small standing ring on the top end. And this cuts actually into the tram line. And as I walk down the tram line, there's a group of 2 circles here as well, which makes up the entirety of all these circles. But what I really want to do now, I really want to actually pole this single circle across the road. And it's quite tricky because from this point I can't see the whole circle itself. I can't even see the road. Ah, there it is. Okay. Well, basically I'm right in line with the whole circle itself, okay? I'm now aligning myself with the pole, and dangling the pole down at a certain angle will allow me to get this side of the circle in, the road, and the other side of the circle.
All of us agreed that this collection of circles and rings were a delightful distraction from the larger events taking place throughout the county of Wiltshire. Formations throughout the years have captivated people's imaginations as to what they could possibly represent. The Silby Hill event certainly caused a concoction of different theories towards its design. However, there were some similarities to an event close to the West Kennet Longbarrow the previous year. Our first walk around led us towards its many fascinating ground features.
This crops formation is not devoid of some very, very interesting features which I want to show you. In each one of the arms, the crop comes round and sort of pushes itself up against the standing crop here. Now this has been seen a couple of times over the years, but it's quite a rare occurrence.
There were other unusual features attached to this formation, like these rectangular portions of crop, and from the air we can see how striking they were to the overall design. However, we wanted to take a closer look.
As I'm walking around discovering this formation, I've hit upon these radiating sections which seem to be coming out from a central point. And this central point basically is this almond shape, which could be the actual body of this creature. And it really is quite fantastic with Silby Hill behind.
The location close to Silby Hill created a mystifying atmosphere. Many people enjoyed the July sunshine as we carried on taking shots at different angles. Ever since the stunning 409 spiral galaxy formation in 2001, many of us have wanted to return to this same location, set high above the Pusey Downs. Although not as impressive as the event 4 years earlier, this latest shape included several unusual impressions positioned on one part of the design. As we discovered different parts to this formation, we all came to the conclusion that something wasn't quite right.
Well, it's taken 4 years, but we're back in the same field of the 2001 409 circle. Now this time we have an 8-arm designed formation with these hexagons on one part of the arms. The question is it fully completed? This formation seems to be a series of circles and hexagons. And when we look at these circles, these 4 circles here, we can see that perhaps the hexagons are made up primarily from a circle and then filled in around the edges.
The entire formation appeared to be incomplete. Joining us on this perfect summer's evening was Dan Vidler, the editor of the UK Crop Circle site, who does take the prize for having the tallest photographic pole out of all of us. There were other individuals with photographic poles itching to take shots of this new event in Wiltshire. This location is close to a paragliding club, which added to the whole experience of this visiting this remote part of the Wiltshire landscape. As we took some final shots silhouetted by the setting sun, we contemplated on how our time here had enriched our season with this formation's charming atmosphere and the many people we met on this glorious evening. Would this location carry on providing surprises for us to years to come? Certainly this was a contrasting design to the 2001 event. Did the circle makers initially have other plans for it though? Across from the ancient stone circle of Avebury, this exquisite formation appeared, shrouded in mystery on its arrival. Between the hours of 3:30 a.m. and 4:45 a.m. on the morning of the 16th of July, this Penrose Triangle design was created. The Penrose Triangle, also known as the Tribar, is an impossible object. The mathematician Roger Penrose independently invented and popularised it in the 1950s, describing it as impossibility in its purest form.
This peculiar design overlooking the amazing stone circle of Avebury has a multitude of these kind of motifs which actually sit on the outer side of the whole formation, and they're actually framed inside 2 outer rings, but the inner part has this triangular section which, when you look at it closely, seems to have some representation towards a kind of an Escher principle or some kind of optical illusion effect.
The triangle does feature prominently in the works of artist M.C. Escher, whose earlier depictions of impossible objects partly inspired it. The optical illusion effect can only be appreciated from an aerial perspective. Many of the people who managed to catch a glimpse of this impressive event were mortified by the defacement that had taken place, literally within hours of its appearance.
One of the most unfortunate aspects of crop circling is how farmers perceive these formations themselves. This particular farmer mowed all the way through this track I'm walking down now, and then made this really long linear track all the way down through the circle, all the way down to the stone circle of Avebury.
From the air, one can clearly see the track mowed by the farmer, with clear intentions to ruin this marvellous work of art. However, with the aid of modern computer software, we managed to create its original form. On its outer perimeter of the formation were square spiral shapes. There appeared to be 24 of them within the band. There were 24 spirals in this vast formation, all appearing from the ground level to be the same. This is a numerological relationship to the 12-12. It is considered to be one of the highest forms of spiritual energies that exist in our universe. We have been provided with a glimpse of a shape in a fourth dimensional reality. Situated in a northwesterly direction from the stone circle of Avebury, this Hyantra mandala, basically the flower of life formation, formed, in complete contrast to the Penrose Triangle just a few hundred yards away in the neighbouring fields. Its hexagonal geometry was a surprise to us all, however its central design hinted at other events that have taken place earlier in the season.
Ever since the year 1990, we've seen formations which are kind of connected to each other. This one on the north side of the henge is sat within a 5-star design, or Star of David, with these multiple triangle sections. Each one has a different size of standing centre, unlike the Windmill Hill formation. Perhaps these two designs are trying to convey some kind of message here in the surrounding Avebury area.
It was discovered that this particular shape had an uncanny resemblance to a water molecule. 25th of July was Love and Peace to Water Day, created by Masaru Emoto, a Japanese researcher into the mysterious properties of water. It is thought that our human vibrational energy, thoughts, words, ideas and music affect the molecular structure of water. Was this the ultimate message at Avebury? This event appeared some weeks earlier in the season, on the 20th of June. All of us had to take this opportunity to visit it, as it was a striking event.
Without a shadow of a doubt, this is going to be the most spectacular design in Hampshire at this time in the season. And it could possibly have some new features as it splays itself across the landscape from one side of the field to the other. Walking in and out of these clumps of crop to try and describe what actually happens. And what that is the large pieces you see here tend to get smaller as they go towards the perimeter of the formation. But this whole technique is very similar to what happened in 2001 with the alien face. Could it be some Hampshire trait going on 4 years later?
The resemblance to the 2001 formations in Hampshire couldn't go unnoticed, and its construction methods were extremely similar.
One of the most unusual features of this incredible formation is its central axis pathway, which I'm actually walking down now. It starts from the trees behind me, runs all the way through the formation and ends up at the roadside. But believe me, it doesn't stop there.
As you can see, the path continues across the road into the neighbouring field. This is the first time we have seen a central spine pathway behave in this manner. The field was obviously too narrow to fit the entire shape within it. I just hope they looked both ways.
Well, I talked about surprises, and this is definitely the major one. The central axis pathway runs directly across the road and runs through into the next field for at least 15 feet.
The field surrounding the ancient tree-lined barrow of East Kennet commands spectacular views across the Avebury landscape, with Silbury Hill in the background creating a mysterious element to the location. As we analysed its many features, we were struck by the impressive floor construction of this elegant formation.
In the last 15 years, there have been several formations in this particular spot. With Silbury Hill behind me here, it really is a dramatic location for a formation. What's very remarkable about this design is that it has 11 splayed outer circles kind of encompassed within the whole part of this middle section. And I'm sure there are several other details I can find further out in this incredible formation.
These motifs radiating out from the central circle resemble the spiral seen on the Wading Hill formation. Clearly, there appeared to be some kind of link. What it actually represents is open to conjecture. The 12 circles were positioned on the end of each of the motifs, each one beautifully created. Many of our overseas friends joined us on this evening, each one agreeing that this was a very intimate event. You feel far more in tune with the landscape in this magnificent location. An honesty box was left by the farmer to recoup the loss of his crop. I made a contribution to what was a memorable time spent in his field.
The small village of Auburn has these two latest offerings from the circle makers. There's two designs very similar to each other and obviously connected in some way in this beautiful setting with two ancient barrows right on top of the hillside. So once again, do we have some connection between ancient sites and these latest offerings?
Viewing this formation on the ground was a feast to the eyes. Many of the ground features included plaited knots at the apex of each of the corners of the triangle. The entire design resembled the works of the renowned artist Victor Vasarely, who was a Hungarian op art painter. Regarded as the father of op art, he explained that art of tomorrow will be a collective treasure, or it will not be art at all. These are indeed prophetic words. Many of us would view the entire crop circle phenomenon as a collective treasure.
Some very interesting developments are happening at Auburn, which started actually last year at Sherborne, where we had that Forsythia Pisces design where it shattered from the middle section. This year we have something very similar. Just down the road is a triangular shape in a circular form, and this one seems to be sort of squarish, but both seem to be connected with this shattering principle, perhaps some sort of magnetic force taking shape.
Its magnetic influence was extremely striking. On the ground, the diamond shapes had exquisite proportions, making up the pattern which was obvious from the air.
I just wanted to show you exactly what the floor was actually doing on the ground as I walked through these diamond shapes. Now, each one of these makes up the entire design, but it's very nicely done. As you can see, the main sort of flow comes through each one and then goes around to make up these standing clumps of crop, but it's very well controlled. Situated just outside the village of Avebury is this enormous design, literally 400 feet across. What it basically is 4 Celtic crosses or quintuplets in a kind of a square pattern. It takes us back to a very early time in crop circle history when only a few researchers were involved in this enigmatic phenomenon. But at the same time, it takes us forward into the future as we've never seen quintuplets connected in this way.
It really was like looking at the past and the future at the same time. Incorporating the old designs in a new form came as a great surprise to us all, and to the many tourists. These tourists flocked to see the phenomenon every year, recording their findings for posterity and, in some cases, research. It was so vast that walking around its perimeter pathway took over 10 minutes to complete. It also included a few surprises on the ground.
There are certainly a number of details in this formation. It's not just a complex shape of quintuplets. What we have here in the central circle are 19 eddies which go around the perimeter, and they're all flowing in an anti-clockwise rotation. And this is the first time we've seen this particular detail in the history of the phenomenon. And I'm interested to see if this carries on throughout the 2005 season.
The number 19 is very significant, as it's no coincidence that this formation placed itself directly next to Avebury. The number 19 represents to the ancients the metatonic cycle of the moon. This clearly demonstrated that this ancient society were highly adept astronomers. Our journey back in time with formations continued with this elegant multi-ring circle positioned close to the Ridgeway track, positioned high above the apiary complex. Due to its simplistic proportions, it was a delight to visit.
This 6-ring multi-event at the Ridgeway Path brings us back to those heydays, those early days in crop circle history when we had these sort of events happening in the Wiltshire area. And it just shows you how unpredictable Wiltshire can be with these amazing events.
With Silbury Hill emerging above the top of the hill, it provided an insight into how the ancient society here would have viewed the landscape. I have always indicated that the placement of the phenomenon is just as important as the designs themselves.
This multi-ringed event at the Ridgeway Path gives us a very good indication to see what events are actually like in this type of crop at this time in the season. And we can see here that the heads are actually looped over and it's literally within days of being harvested.
A fascinating anomaly associated with the rings was a set of tracks which clipped the outer edge of the rings and carried across the entire field.
Unfortunately, we can't see exactly what we have on the ground with these clubs going off in a line, but perhaps with the pole it might reveal some hidden significance.
What can only be described as a shield-type design, it also made reference to some ancient symbolism.
This is certainly one of the most unusual designs to appear so far in Wiltshire, but what we have here is a square shape with these 6 diagonal clumps of crop going off. But when you first look at them, they look like kind of propellers from the air. Most certainly there could be some kind of spiritual, deeper significance to these propeller designs, perhaps some kind of Templar shield we're looking at here.
A Templar connection cannot be ruled out, and indeed this touches on a subject of which everyone appears to be captivated at the moment. Was this our own Da Vinci Code in the crop? A number of people were analysing the crop at close quarters. At this time of the season, the crop becomes very brittle and can look rather ragged, so a closer inspection is needed for finding clues as to its creation. It was the symbolism that really caught our imagination, and its ancient quality asked many questions, although very few answers were forthcoming.
Now, where is this formation? I mean, I'm actually walking in the field with the harvester cutting this particular portion of the wheat field. I just can't seem to find it. We're fighting against time this time of year and, oh my God, it's still here.
What a relief! Talk about 11th hour timing. With the harvester already cutting around the formation, time was certainly not on our side. However, blessings to the farmer who kindly left it within the field for us to explore. The entire design resembled in many ways the Orborne event some weeks earlier, as I took pole shots next to the harvester working. This really could have been a one-off situation. The weather was closing in, so any photographic record had to be made in haste.
You know, it's not very often you can actually pole shot a formation and the combine harvester at the same time. I'm just wondering if it's actually going to stop.
You can see risking life and limb is part and parcel of the crop circle connector, especially with a 20-ton harvester bearing down on you.
Welling Smithy is one of the most impressive and atmospheric chambers you will see today. This ancient grave got its name from the Anglo-Saxon god Wayland, the god of metalsmithing.
The chamber barrow wasn't quite in direct alignment with this magnificent 300-foot formation, but the link was clearly visible. There was no doubt the impact this formation had on everyone involved in the phenomenon. It clearly demonstrated a Mayan connection.
As many UFO researchers are coming over here to actually decode what is potentially inside this formation, as many of the dashes around its perimeter seem to point to some significant event in the near future.
The formation's astronomical connection to the year 2012 was profoundly significant. The arc at the centre of the formation refers to the beginning of the yearly cycle occurring on the 20th of May, the day the Earth, Sun and the Pleiades are aligned. In the formation, we also found an image of the eclipse that is due to occur on the 20th of May 2012. The dashes around the central arc were most certainly binary in nature, relating, we felt, to these specific dates.
As I walk through these dashes, I really want to know what this date actually represents, as it could potentially affect us all on this planet.
This was a moment of great excitement for all of us, as the significance of this event began to shine through. Every season we hope for, and usually have, the magic moment which makes circle chasing so worthwhile. This had to be one of them.
Walking through these key shapes on the outer perimeter of the formation, it really does remind me of the 2004 Silby Hill. Obviously there's some kind of potential meaning towards these two events, but these keys are more interfered with. But if we're actually going to have any association between this formation and Wayland Smithy, well, basically the Anglo-Saxon god Wayland was associated with labyrinths, very much like these labyrinths around the perimeter. Perhaps there's some major significance towards its placement next to the barrow.
The connection to its placement could possibly be in respect to the ancients' astronomical wisdom, very much like the builders of Avebury. The megalithic association is undeniable. This compelling event is an ongoing communication which started in 2000 at Chilbolton with the use of binary code. Since then, 4 other formations have occurred, including the 2004 Silbury Hill formation. A clear reference to the Mayans and a probable link to the end of their calendar, as can be seen with this incredible formation. The last formations of the season all appeared to us to hold something very much in common with each other, but were very difficult for us to decipher their exact meaning.
Literally, the prophecies of the Maya offer hope and offer the way we play our part in our destiny. We really are here to serve and facilitate a greater process which is unfolding. We've been given 2 opportunities in 2004 and 2005. Let's hope we honour those opportunities.
Now within the 2005 Wayland formation, we have specific information and dates relating to the significant year in 2012. Do not adjust your set. You are not looking back in time earlier in the season. This is truly the month of August, honestly. The crop was still green and immature, however, there was a surprise waiting for all of us on the ground.
This really is quite a profound formation. From first glance, it seems to be some kind of 5-sided die shape or quintuplet design, but the middle section is quite exquisite, and there's an array of different designs which I've never seen before in details. But there seems to be some correlation between the Mayan elder symbol, the Sac Bay.
The amazing central section comprised of several platitudes of crop, exquisitely intertwined. In one part, you could place your hand through them like some kind of tunnel one made as a child. In other parts, the crop was raised and clumped together in multiple rows. To try and prise these proportions of crop apart was a difficult task. From above, the many details can be divided to provide the design of the Sac Bay as you view it from a distance. The Sac Bay had 2 principal purposes gained from the knowledge of the Mayan elders. These were to open doors of opportunity for Mayan elders to share their wisdom to a higher cross-section of the world's community, and to preserve their knowledge in the face of advancing globalization. It was wonderful to witness the older quintuplet designs again in 2005, a real trip down memory lane for us all. Being in the right place at the right time was an understatement here at Uffington. While we were in the Wayland Smithy Formation, astonishingly we heard about this one just over the hill from us.
This new formation at Uffington Castle behind me is absolutely massive. It's at least 400 feet in diameter, if not a little bit less. Certainly much larger than the Wayland Smithy Formation, which is literally 2 fields over to our west.
It was becoming clear to us now that the direct link between Wayland and Wallstone was undeniable.
The full implications of this formation cannot really be comprehended at this stage. But one thing is for sure, on the night of its creation, it definitely was pouring with rain around this particular area.
The motifs around the edge resembled the inner design of the Boreham Down Formation, which appeared earlier in the season on the 22nd of June. Its complexity was astonishing.
This whole formation seems to be actually a mirror image of itself. Now where the two actually divide is actually at this particular point. I'm actually standing in the central point with these 6 diamond shapes around me, and there seems to be some Aztec influence. These diamond shapes possibly could represent some divine influence.
On further analysis, these particular shapes are actually Mayan and have some relation to the 6th sun. We are currently in the 5th sun. The Mayans believed that we are actually entering the time of the 6th sun, when we will have direct communication with the Master of the Stars, or as they called them, the Jaguar Knights. This particular message has direct correlations to the Wayland Smithy event.
As we walk around this formation, we suddenly realise at this time and the sheer scale of this event, we are actually looking at the very, very last formations of the 2005 season, with Wayland Smithy behind me as part of this whole connection. So what kind of year has it been for the crop circle phenomenon in 2005? Certainly there was an amazing expectation for this particular year after the dramatic events which took place at Silbury Hill in 2004. Many people wondered if that particular message inside that formation would continue in the fields in 2005. The season started early but also very slowly. There was 4 events in April and 5 in May. The season kicked off in Wiltshire on the 1st of May at Golden Ball Hill. What was rather intriguing about this pretty but smallish event was its placement directly over the same position in the field as the Dolphins in 2004. The month of June saw 19 events around the country, starting on the 5th of June at Furze Farm. This well-proportioned formation in young barley was unfortunately denied access by the landowners, but from the aerial shots, its majestic quality in the landscape was unparalleled at this particular stage. The formation at Clapford Bottom was also one of the highlights, harking back to the end of the 2003 season with the beautiful Swallows formation. Lockley Hill is a remote part of the Wiltshire landscape, and this rather elusive event was positioned in a location which has never witnessed the phenomenon before until now. Moving forward to the 16th of July, our next location was at Waden Hill overlooking Avebury. This delightful offering included a clear and concise Penrose triangle as its main design. The village of Avebury and its henge became a magnet for the phenomenon, as 2 more events appeared close to the standing stones. The Avebury Manor formation was certainly impressive with regard to its size, but also its encoded message within. As we approached the final weeks in the season, many of us anticipated what the last formations would hold for all of us. Well, certainly our expectations were met at this Oxfordshire ancient site. Wayland Smithy is a tree-lined enclosure, basically an ancient barrow, and it became the limelight for the very last 2 formations which we actually witnessed in 2005. The Uffington White Horse behind me was certainly the most amazing backdrop to the second formation that appeared here, clearly identifying the ongoing Mayan connection, this time to the Hunab Kul. Now this was basically the god creator of all for the Mayans. Now within the actual decoded message, it's certainly related to a time where the Mayans thought was the change of the era. The sensational information that was decoded from the second formation included the transcendental knowledge related to us all at the change of the era. We leave you with these last shots as we circle around the Wallstone Hill formation, a climatic end to the sequence of formations that I'm sure will continue to accelerate in terms of meaning as we edge closer to the date in 2012.